At the age of 10, these 3 children endure everyday struggles that would test most adults mentally and physically. Danielle is still the size of a toddler. She knows she will spend her adult life in the body of a child.
Sometimes I do get upset because, it's in fashion, most of the clothes that I see, and I can't wear them.
When she was 18 months old, 90% of Terri's body was burnt in a house fire. She defied medical odds when she made it through the first night and has continued to defy all the odds since.
When I grow up, I'd like to be a nurse.
Callum may look like an ordinary 10-year-old boy, but his way of life is quite unique. At home, he's the man of the house, caring for his disabled mother and 5-year-old sister.
My mum has always had this condition, but from the age I could, I've always tried to help. Sometimes I've made things worse by trying to help, but I learned from my mistakes and I tried to make it better and better.
Despite their hardship, these children remain lively, happy, grounded and strong, each one of them embracing life like any 10-year-old. What is it that enables these unique children to cope? And how will their already complex lives get harder as they move into teenage years and adulthood? These are Britain's extraordinary 10-year-olds.
Well, school days, I wake up at 7. It's a weekend, I'll just wake up any time. Sometimes it's 10 o'clock. Look at what I'd like to live in there. Because I'd like to work in a hospital. Because I'd like to help people who's ill. But I think I know how to do bandages because I had lots on me.
Terri Calvesbert began life as a typical bouncing baby girl. But in 1998, an accidental house fire ripped through their home, leaving 18-month-old Terri suffering 88% burns to her body and fighting for her life. Nobody expected this extraordinary little girl to live through that night.
The type of injury Terri suffered is one of the worst insults that the human body can suffer.
On the night of the 20th of November, 1998, the room that Terri was sleeping in went up in flames.
The actual accident itself was quite extensive. It was mainly where she was in her bedroom. It was sort of a ground floor flat. But obviously by the time somebody realised what was going on, it was too late. You couldn't actually get in there to get her out. The whole flat was gutted. But even the firemen, they didn't realise she was in there. They thought someone was in there, but they couldn't find her. And the only reason how they found her is because she gasped for breath at exactly the right point. They resuscitated her at the time, and it was a matter of them going there or losing her completely, so they put her in the back of a police car and went.
With every second vital for her survival, Terri was rushed to the local hospital.
And you go completely blank. I just sat in the grass verge and didn't know what to do.
A stunned Paul was quickly taken to the hospital in another police car to be with his daughter. When he arrived, the sight of Terri was just too much for him to accept.
She was just like, it's like a silver sheet really, it's like a heat sheet. And the only thing you saw was 2 little eyes. And the smell of it was horrible. You can't be described the smell, it was horrible.
He walked into her room and then walked straight out, wanting just to remember his daughter as she was, not as she had become in the last horrific few hours.
But after that, I made a point that if I can't see her as she is, then how am I expect anybody else to see her as she was?
This is Terri Calvesbert at 10 years old.
I go to football on a Friday, and I learned how to do football and how to play it.
Position, good girl. Wait for the ball, wait for the ball.
But 8 years ago, when she suffered 90% burns in an accidental house fire, nobody expected her to make it through one night. If she was going to have any chance of survival, she had to be transferred to a specialist burns unit. On arrival at the Broomfield Hospital in Essex, she was immediately put under the care of world-class burns surgeon Dr. Peter Zawalski.
I was on call that night and I was called in to see her. She obviously had a very serious burn injury and the whole team obviously were involved in initially resuscitating her and then later on the following day operating on her. Terri had an extensive up to 90% full thickness burn injury which affected her face, her trunk, both upper limbs and both lower limbs. Unfortunately, Terri's fingers were essentially dead when she came in. We didn't remove them to start off with because we always give everything the benefit of the doubt, but during the course of her treatment it became apparent that the fingers on both hands unfortunately were not viable. We had to remove them. Similarly, her foot, it became apparent that the burn was so bad there that the foot was not viable, the tissue there was not alive, and we had to remove it. Terri had a very deep burn to the scalp and skull, and at the time of her injury the burn was down through the skull to the outer lining of the brain.
He always told you the worst, which we wanted to hear because then we prepare ourselves for the worst. You know, a number of times she's stopped breathing and they had to do something. In the theatre they had to do it a few times. So, and we had some very, very big decisions to make as well. And because every time I took her to the theatre, she would stop breathing and they had to resuscitate her. And it happened every single time. And it got to the stage where they said, if it happened again, you know, what do you want us to do? You got to let her go, and that'd be it. Because obviously it's not very fair on her. And it took a big, we sat down for days. Well, days, it seemed like days, probably a few hours, trying to figure out what to do. And it came to the decision, if it did do it, then that'd be it. Just let it go. And then she never done it again. You know, the strange thing about it, she never ever done it again.
It was 3 months before Terri was off the critical list, and 8 months before she was allowed to leave the hospital. During this time, the whole experience was too much for Terri's mother to handle. She left Paul caring for Terri alone, and Terri hasn't seen her mum for 7 years. In that time, Terri has undergone over 80 operations in an attempt to rebuild her body that was so badly burned away.
She had the majority of her full thickness burn wound excised, and that was then resurfaced with temporary or donor skin and later on artificial skin.
Despite 8 years of reconstructive surgery, Terri is still left with a catalogue of physical disfigurements and disabilities.
She lost all her hair. She'll never ever have hair back because she lost all the grown part and everything. She lost it right down to the skull, so she wears a wig.
If I go out, I will wear my wig, but if I don't go out, I won't wear the shit on.
But also, because of her ears and because of the fire and all the medicine she had, she lost a bit of hearing.
My skin gets all dry.
She's got no nose, but we'll know sort of the fleshy part of the nose. She's still got the bone structure, so hopefully they can build on that. And then it's her feet. She's lost one foot completely from the ankle down, so she's got nothing there.
There's supposed to that go to my left leg to help me walk and run. Without it, I can't run very well or walk very well. There's a foot inside my shoe.
The other foot is normal, but even then she's got artificial sort of splints on in her foot, and she wears normal shoes, so you wouldn't notice it when she stand up and walk around.
Caring for Terri has been a full-time job for Paul since the fire, but to give him a break, 1 weekend a month, Terri stays with Alison and her family.
I met Terri originally through my job. I was a nursery nurse with the Community Children's Nursing Team in Ipswich, and I used to go in and do her bath and her skincare and put her to bed twice a week just to give her dad a bit of a break. Terri's a very humbling little girl because you kind of think, you know, I gripe when I cut my finger or stub my toe, and yet you think what Terri's been through and what have I got to whinge about. And when you watch her try so hard to do something, it makes you realise that, you know, you can try to do things and you can get through things. Terri obviously has her disabilities from her burns, and obviously her hands aren't really there, and she looks very different from normal 10-year-old little girls, but once you get past that, she is perfectly normal.
I've got 13.
13?
How many have you got?
Not that many, I don't think. She never really comments on the way she looks. I mean, she'll say if she's dressed up like a princess that she looks like a princess. I do think that as she gets older, obviously things are going to be an issue. Obviously boys are going to be an issue, going to nightclubs. And at the moment, Terri mixes with quite a small group. And obviously as she gets older, she's going to go out of that network and she's going to meet an awful lot of people who maybe don't know who Terri is. But her personality is just so strong that I think at the moment she'll cope with it and she will just tell people.
Bye, bye.
OK, as you know, it's World Book Day today. I don't need to tell you that because we're all dressed up.
Despite all her disabilities, Terri attends a mainstream school and has had no problem keeping up with or being accepted by her friends.
The other children have been with her since, a lot of them since they very first started school. So they've known her for most of her life, certainly her school life. So Terri's just Terri to them, you know, and they know what she can do, what she can't do. They'll help her, you know, just little things they'll help her do, stick things into her book if she can't do it. They'll put her chair up at the end of the day, and they just do it for her with no question. So they really look after her well and just accept her as she is.
I'm going to draw an island there, and we're going to put pirates.
Terri was so young at the time of the fire. She's never known a life without disfigurements. She's adapted her life around them and doesn't let them stop her progressing. She's learned to write and draw by holding the pencil between both her hands.
I'm going to sand, that's the island, that's the sea.
Yeah, because I'm going to do one bait there.
All right, OK, that'll probably be enough, I reckon.
That's too much there, isn't it? The rest of the sea then, isn't it?
Are you going to use felt tips or pencil crayons? They're over on that table over there when you need them then, OK? So I want completely tidy tables, things away, and then I'll see which table's ready to line up. Right, so will anyone get 5? First, I wonder, table points.
Terri's independence has changed really since she started school. When she's got into sort of the infant school, sort of a change overnight really. One minute she went in very shy, she came out and she was full of beans and she was telling me what to do. But that was good because then I knew that she was getting on fine at school and she was normal. Senior school is going to be the biggest. It's going to be the biggest change yet because obviously she's going to go up to a lot bigger school where she hasn't got the closeness of all the children because there's so many children there. It's a big environment, it's a different timetables, different activities, harder activities.
Since the fire, Paul's life has been solely devoted to Terri. But in 2005, he met Nikki, who he plans to marry. Nikki now shares Terri's care, and the two have developed a special bond.
Nikki is going to be my stepmum. We do lots of girly things when Dad isn't around.
You know, it's amazing what she faces on a daily basis. You know, you don't see it. Even I didn't until I moved in. Like what she faces on a daily basis. If she can get over that, she can get over anything.
At 10, Terri is at a crucial turning point in her life. In the years immediately following the fire, the most important thing for Terri and her family was keeping her alive and healthy and enabling her to have as normal a life as possible. Now she's verging on her teenage years, when appearances become much more important and society becomes much less sympathetic to those who look different. Today, Terri's returning to the hospital, where she beat all the odds 8 years ago, when she survived the night. She's about to find out what plans Peter Przewalski has to reconstruct her body and face over the next few years as she develops into a young woman.
At the age of 10, when I see Terri, I'm extremely proud for her, her father and her family, and particularly to see the way she's risen above her injury. Right, now then, how are things? In the future, Terri's going to need further surgical reconstruction. We're in the process of reconstructing a hand. We're going to have to continue releasing any areas of scar that tighten up. We'd release the contracture, put some artificial skin or Integra in there, and we'd see if we could get that down as well. The scarred skin and the skin grafted areas do not stretch and grow in the same way as normal skin. So maybe you'd release this side first and get that straight, yeah, or straighter. In Terri's case, the skin in this part of the arm is getting a bit tighter and causing her some restriction of movement at the elbow. So at some stage in the future we're going to have to release that and put some more skin in.
What about her face? I know you talked about that last time, didn't you?
Yeah.
Whether to do anything with her nose and that. No.
I think she's going to need to be a bit older to do something there. If we make her a nose now that suits her face as she is at the moment, in 5 or 10 years' time that nose will be too small for her. And Mr. No, I think that's okay, darling.
That was right, that was flat.
Yeah, that's nice, that's okay. In Terri's future she will thrive. I think she's got the mental fortitude to actually do very well. I think her inner strength will shine through. We find that, you know, what's up here, what's in here, really does help people overcome their problems.
At the beginning we had these visions of her obviously always being at home, never leaving home. She wouldn't have the confidence to leave home. You know, she'll never find anybody because she'll be picked on. She looks different. You know, them sort of things. Now, when we look back on it, I think it's stupid. You know, the way she's going now, she'll be, you know, she'll leave home at 18, I reckon. You know, get a place of herself, start work, you know, do everything normal. And that's what I wanted to do.
When I go out there, I'd like to get married and have children.
It is going to be tough, but we'll get there. You know, it's as simple as that. You have to get there. She can face what she's faced already. She can face anything.